Millions Monthly presents a true American success story, not of privilege, not of luck, but of relentless resilience. Before Barbara Corcoran became a real estate mogul, a Shark Tank icon, and one of America's most recognizable self-made entrepreneurs, she was a struggling waitress with a learning disability, juggling jobs and rejection in New York City. Barbara Ann Corcoran was born in 1949 in Edgewater, New Jersey, into a large Irish Catholic family of 10 children. Her father worked multiple low-paying jobs as a printer and salesman, while her mother managed the household with discipline and grit. Money was always tight. Security was fragile. Failure felt close. From an early age, Barbara struggled in school. She was diagnosed with dyslexia long before it was widely understood or supported. Teachers labeled her slow. Classmates underestimated her. Authority figures doubted her potential. But what the system saw as a weakness would later become her secret weapon. Barbara learned to observe, adapt, and communicate in ways others couldn't. She developed street smarts before academic confidence. She learned how to read people, not textbooks. And in America's most competitive city, those skills mattered. After graduating college with average grades, Barbara entered the workforce with no clear plan, just determination. She worked more than 20 different jobs: waitress, receptionist, messenger, and assistant. Each job taught her something about people, sales, rejection, and survival. One job would change everything. While working as a waitress at a diner in New York City, Barbara met a man who offered her a $1,000 loan to start a small real estate business. That loan came with a partnership and later betrayal. They co-founded the Corcoran Group, a tiny real estate brokerage operating out of a small office. Barbara handled marketing, branding, and sales. Her partner handled operations. Together, they built momentum in a brutal New York real estate market. Then the partnership collapsed. Her business partner and romantic partner left her for another woman and started a competing firm. The betrayal devastated Barbara emotionally and financially. She was forced out, left with nothing but her name, her reputation, and her refusal to quit. For many, this would have been the end. For Barbara Corcoran, it was the beginning. Fueled by anger, heartbreak, and ambition, Barbara rebuilt the Corcoran Group from scratch, this time on her own terms. She leaned into what she did best, marketing before marketing was a buzzword. She understood something few in real estate did at the time. Backhand index pointing right: people don't buy property. They buy stories, status, and trust. Barbara pioneered bold advertising, eye-catching headlines, market reports, and personal branding. She made herself the face of the company. She turned listings into narratives. She turned data into authority. In the cutthroat New York real estate industry, Barbara Corcoran became impossible to ignore. She also hired differently. Barbara recruited ambitious young agents, many underestimated elsewhere, and trained them to think like entrepreneurs. She created a culture of competition, confidence, and visibility. The Corcoran Group grew rapidly, office by office, borough by borough. Despite skepticism from male-dominated leadership circles, Barbara thrived. She negotiated aggressively, marketed fearlessly, and embraced risk. She turned rejection into momentum. By the late 1980s and 1990s, the Corcoran Group was one of the most powerful real estate brands in New York City. Barbara had transformed herself from a struggling waitress into a self-made real estate entrepreneur, redefining what success looked like for women in business. But her journey was far from over. Barbara didn't just want money. She wanted influence. She began publishing real estate market reports, becoming a trusted voice in media. TV appearances followed. Speaking engagements followed. Millions Monthly continues the true American success story of Barbara Corcoran, a woman who turned rejection, heartbreak, and doubt into one of the most powerful real estate brands in the United States. By the early 1990s, Barbara Corcoran had already beaten the odds. She was no longer the struggling waitress or the abandoned business partner. She was the founder and driving force behind the Corcoran Group, a fast-growing New York City real estate brokerage operating in one of the most competitive markets in America. But growth brought new challenges. New York real estate was brutal. Deals collapsed overnight. Agents jumped between firms. Competition was ruthless, male-dominated, and unforgiving. Many firms relied on tradition, relationships, and outdated sales methods. Barbara relied on innovation. She understood something fundamental about American consumers. Perception creates value. Instead of selling apartments, Barbara sold dreams. She sold lifestyle, prestige, and belonging. Long before branding became a business buzzword, Barbara Corcoran was building a brand around herself and her company. She placed her own photo in advertisements, a bold move at the time. She wrote confident headlines. She created market reports that positioned her firm as the ultimate authority on New York real estate prices. People didn't just want to buy property. They wanted Barbara Corcoran's opinion. This strategy worked. The Corcoran Group expanded rapidly across Manhattan and beyond. Barbara recruited ambitious agents who were hungry, overlooked, or underestimated elsewhere. People just like her. She trained them aggressively, encouraged competition, and rewarded confidence. Her leadership style was intense but effective. Barbara demanded results. She pushed her team to think creatively, negotiate fearlessly, and never appear desperate. She taught them a core American business lesson. The person who looks confident controls the deal. As the company grew, so did Barbara's influence. Media outlets began calling her for insight on housing trends. She became a regular voice in newspapers, magazines, and television. Her ability to explain complex market behavior in simple language made her a favorite among journalists. Barbara wasn't just selling homes anymore. She was becoming a national business personality. But success did not come without resistance. Many competitors resented her visibility. Critics accused her of being all marketing and no substance. Others dismissed her as too aggressive, too loud, or too ambitious. Labels often placed on women who succeed in male-dominated industries. Barbara embraced the criticism. She once said that being underestimated is a powerful advantage. While others doubted her, she moved faster, thought bolder, and executed harder. One of her smartest moves was doubling down on data. Barbara invested heavily in market research, creating detailed reports that tracked pricing trends, neighborhood growth, and buyer behavior. These reports became industry standards, referenced by competitors and media alike. Authority equals trust. Trust equals business. By the mid to late 1990s, the Corcoran Group was no longer just a brokerage, it was a real estate institution. The firm dominated luxury listings and influenced pricing strategies across New York City. Barbara Corcoran had become a self-made millionaire, but she didn't see money as the finish line. She saw it as leverage. With financial stability, Barbara began exploring new opportunities. She invested in other businesses, mentored young entrepreneurs, and sharpened her public persona. She studied what made American brands iconic: visibility, confidence, and consistency. Yet even at the peak of her success, Barbara made a decision that shocked the industry. She chose to sell. In 2001, Barbara Corcoran sold the Corcoran Group to NRT, now part of Anywhere Real Estate, for $66 million. To many, it looked like an exit. To Barbara, it was evolution. She walked away not because she was done, but because she was ready for something bigger. The sale freed her time, energy, and attention. It allowed her to think beyond real estate and focus on what truly excited her: entrepreneurship, investing, and teaching others how to win. Barbara didn't retire. She rebranded. She began writing books, speaking across the United States, and positioning herself as a mentor for aspiring business owners, especially women who felt underestimated, underfunded, or overlooked. Her story resonated deeply with Americans. A woman with dyslexia, from a working-class family, with no elite education, who built and sold a company for tens of millions. This was the real American dream, and America was paying attention. What Barbara didn't know yet was that her biggest platform, the one that would make her a household name, was still ahead. A television show was about to change everything. After selling the Corcoran Group for $66 million, Barbara Corcoran entered a phase of life that many entrepreneurs dream of: financial freedom. But freedom did not mean slowing down. In fact, it unlocked her most influential chapter yet. Barbara now had three things most people never get at the same time: capital, credibility, and confidence. She could invest. She could choose. She could say no. And then came Shark Tank. When ABC launched Shark Tank, it was an unproven concept. A reality show where entrepreneurs pitched raw business ideas to real investors had never been tested on American primetime television. Barbara said yes immediately. She didn't join Shark Tank to look rich. She joined to spot potential. From the very first season, Barbara stood out. She wasn't the loudest shark. She wasn't the richest. But she was often the sharpest reader of people. She listened more than she spoke. She watched body language. She paid attention to how founders explained failure. Barbara believed that the entrepreneur matters more than the idea. Over time, her investing style became clear to the American audience. She favored scrappy founders, underdogs, immigrants, women, and people who reminded her of herself. Underestimated but unstoppable. She often invested when others dropped out. And she often won. Some of Barbara Corcoran's most successful Shark Tank investments include businesses that were rejected by other sharks. Companies that went on to generate tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. America watched as Barbara turned small investments into massive wins. But Shark Tank did more than build her portfolio. It turned Barbara Corcoran into a household name. Millions of Americans began recognizing her not just as a real estate mogul, but as a business mentor. Her tough love advice, honest feedback, and fearless confidence resonated with entrepreneurs across the country. She spoke openly about failure. She admitted mistakes. She normalized rejection. Barbara didn't pretend success was easy. She explained that she failed repeatedly. Bad deals, bad partnerships, bad timing, and that each failure sharpened her instincts. This honesty made her relatable. She wasn't selling fantasy. She was teaching reality. Barbara's presence on Shark Tank also shifted how America viewed women in business. She was direct. She negotiated hard. She walked away without apology. And she didn't soften her success to make others comfortable. She once said, "The difference between successful people and others is how long they spend feeling sorry for themselves." That mindset became her brand. Beyond television, Barbara expanded her influence aggressively. She published best-selling books, delivered keynote speeches across the United States, and built a strong digital presence. Her advice became viral. Her quotes circulated on social media. Her personality became recognizable across generations. She wasn't just an investor anymore. She was an American business icon. But with visibility came scrutiny. Critics questioned her deals. Some doubted her valuation methods. Others underestimated her because of her calm delivery compared to more aggressive sharks. Barbara ignored the noise. She focused on outcomes. And the outcomes spoke loudly. By the mid-2010s, Barbara Corcoran had invested in dozens of companies, many of which exploded in value. She had proven that her success wasn't accidental, it was repeatable. What truly set Barbara apart was her philosophy on money. She never chased money. She chased leverage. She believed money should buy freedom. Freedom to choose projects, freedom to walk away, freedom to say no to toxic environments. She also believed wealth came with responsibility. Barbara mentored female founders aggressively, often investing in women-led startups when others hesitated. She knew firsthand how difficult it was for women to raise capital in America. Her message was clear. Confidence is not inherited. It's built by surviving rejection. For millions watching Shark Tank, Barbara Corcoran became proof that you don't need a perfect background to build an extraordinary future. You need resilience. You need judgment. You need courage. And perhaps most importantly, you need to believe in yourself before anyone else does. As her fame grew, Barbara never forgot her roots. She spoke often about dyslexia, failure, and being underestimated. She reminded people that success is rarely linear and never fair, yet it is always possible. By this stage of her life, Barbara Corcoran had achieved what very few ever do. She turned her personal struggle into a national lesson. But she wasn't finished. Her final chapter would be about legacy, about what it means to win, give back, and redefine success for the next generation. As Barbara Corcoran's face became familiar in millions of American homes through Shark Tank, many people assumed her journey had finally become easy. Fame, money, influence. To the outside world, she had reached the top. But behind the scenes, Barbara's life was still shaped by the same forces that had defined her from the beginning: risk, fear, and reinvention. Barbara often said that success does not eliminate fear, it changes its form. Early in her Shark Tank years, Barbara made several investments that failed completely. Some companies collapsed. Some founders quit. Some ideas simply didn't scale. Millions of dollars disappeared. And Barbara took responsibility. She never blamed the market. She never blamed the founders. She blamed her own judgment and then sharpened it. In American business culture, failure is often hidden. Barbara did the opposite. She talked about it openly. She explained that failure is not a signal to stop. It's a data point. That mindset came from her earliest struggles. Growing up with dyslexia had taught her how to recover faster than others. She had learned long ago that embarrassment passes, but quitting lasts forever. Barbara also faced criticism for her personality. Some called her too blunt. Others called her too aggressive. Some even called her lucky. Barbara understood something important about American success narratives. People are comfortable with confident men, but suspicious of confident women. She refused to apologize. Barbara leaned into her authenticity. She stayed direct. She stayed sharp. She stayed honest. Over time, her consistency built trust, not just with entrepreneurs but with audiences. Her influence expanded beyond television. Barbara became a sought-after speaker at business conferences across the United States. She spoke at universities, corporate leadership events, and women's entrepreneurship forums. Her message was consistent. Don't wait to be picked. Pick yourself. She encouraged Americans to stop asking for permission to lead, to start, to fail, to win. One of Barbara's most powerful lessons was about confidence. She often said confidence is not something you're born with, it's something you earn by surviving discomfort. Every rejection survived builds confidence. Every risk taken strengthens it. Barbara also spoke openly about money, a topic many avoid. She believed money was not about status but about options. Money gives you the ability to leave bad situations, fund your ideas, and protect your independence. She reminded entrepreneurs that wealth without control is not freedom. As her career evolved, Barbara began mentoring founders more intentionally. She focused not just on profits, but on people development. She helped entrepreneurs learn how to sell themselves, not just their product. She believed storytelling was the most powerful business skill in America. The best product doesn't always win. The best story does. That belief traced directly back to her real estate days, where she learned that perception drives value. Barbara also became a role model for women balancing ambition and personal identity. She spoke honestly about relationships, self-worth, and independence. She refused to frame success as perfection. She admitted mistakes in love. She admitted moments of self-doubt. She admitted fear even after success. This honesty deepened her connection with audiences. Barbara was no longer just a shark. She was a teacher. As years passed, Barbara began thinking more seriously about legacy. Not legacy as fame, but legacy as impact. She wanted to be remembered not just as a successful investor, but as someone who changed how Americans viewed failure, confidence, and women in power. She believed the American dream needed updating. Not everyone starts equal. Not everyone has safety nets. But everyone deserves opportunity. Barbara's story challenged the myth that success comes from talent alone. She proved that persistence, branding, and courage often matter more. Even in her later years, Barbara continued investing, mentoring, and speaking. She stayed relevant by adapting, embracing new platforms, new founders, and new ideas. She never became comfortable, because comfort, in her words, is where ambition dies. By this point in her life, Barbara Corcoran had done something extraordinary. She had turned her personal insecurities, dyslexia, rejection, self-doubt, into competitive advantages. She had transformed herself from a struggling waitress into one of the most powerful women in American business. But her final chapter would not be about money or fame. It would be about meaning. Barbara Corcoran's story does not end with wealth. It ends with wisdom. By the time Barbara reached the later stages of her career, she had already achieved what most people only dream of: financial freedom, national recognition, and influence over some of the brightest entrepreneurial minds in the United States. But Barbara believed something deeper than success. She believed that legacy matters more than income. As her role on Shark Tank continued, Barbara became increasingly selective. She no longer invested only in ideas. She invested in people with character. Founders who showed grit. Founders who could survive rejection. Founders who understood that success is built over years, not viral moments. Barbara often said that America doesn't suffer from a lack of ideas, it suffers from a lack of execution and self-belief. She watched hundreds of entrepreneurs walk into the Shark Tank full of hope, fear, and ambition. Some were prepared. Many were not, and Barbara noticed patterns. The entrepreneurs who succeeded were rarely the smartest in the room. They were the most adaptable. They listened. They learned. They pivoted without ego. Barbara respected that. One of her strongest beliefs was that failure should be reframed in American culture. Too many people treat failure as an identity instead of an event. Barbara taught that failure is temporary, but quitting is permanent. She reminded entrepreneurs that every major American success story includes rejection. Amazon was rejected. Starbucks was rejected. Disney was rejected. And Barbara Corcoran herself was rejected more times than she could count. Rejection, she believed, was proof you were trying. As her influence grew, Barbara also became a voice for women in leadership. She openly challenged outdated narratives about gender, power, and ambition. She rejected the idea that women must soften themselves to be accepted. "You don't need permission to be powerful," she said. "You need courage." Barbara believed that confidence is not arrogance. It is preparation meeting opportunity. She encouraged women to negotiate harder, speak louder, and take credit for their work. She reminded them that humility does not mean invisibility. Her message resonated deeply across the United States, especially with young professionals navigating competitive industries. Barbara's life became proof that background does not determine destiny. A dyslexic girl from a poor household, a former waitress, a woman told she wasn't smart enough, and yet she built an empire. As she reflected on her journey, Barbara often credited her failures more than her victories. Every setback forced her to innovate. Every loss sharpened her instincts. Every rejection made her more resourceful. She once said, "If you're comfortable, you're not growing." That philosophy guided her entire life. Even after achieving everything, Barbara continued to learn. She studied younger entrepreneurs. She adapted to new technologies. She stayed curious because curiosity keeps ambition alive. Barbara also redefined what wealth means. To her, wealth was not just money, it was control over time. The ability to choose projects. The ability to walk away from bad deals. The ability to mentor without pressure. She believed true success is when you no longer work out of fear. Fear of poverty. Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Barbara had conquered all three. In interviews, she often spoke about happiness, not as comfort, but as alignment. Alignment between values, work, and identity. She encouraged Americans to stop chasing titles and start chasing meaning. Her legacy is not just visible in skyscrapers or investment portfolios. It is visible in entrepreneurs who dared to start, a women who stopped shrinking, founders who learned to sell themselves, people who realized failure is survivable. Barbara Corcoran did not just succeed in America. She helped reshape the American dream. A dream where success is not reserved for the privileged. A dream where resilience matters more than pedigree. A dream where branding, belief, and bravery can change everything. And that is why her story matters. Not because she became rich, but because she proved that anyone willing to persist can rise. Here at Millions Monthly, we We share stories like Barbara Corcoran's to remind you that greatness is not about perfection. It's about persistence. If this story inspired you, challenged you, or changed how you see success, then this channel is for you. Because every millionaire story starts with a decision. A decision to try. A decision to fail forward. A decision to believe. And maybe, just maybe, your story will be featured here next. Thank you for watching Millions Monthly, where real stories create real ambition. Don't forget to subscribe. Your journey starts now.